Greetings, fellow recappers. Welcome back to Mystic Recaps. In today's video we will be viewing a 2010 thriller film American, so grab your popcorn and watch out for spoilers. The movie opens in the picturesque snowy hills of Sweden. Former hitman Jack is attempting to leave his past behind and enjoy a peaceful life with his girlfriend Ingrid, who is unaware of his true profession. One morning, while out on a walk, the couple comes across footprints in the snow that set off Jack's alarms. Ingrid believes they may be hunters, but Jack knows better and quickly pulls her into a hiding spot, just in time before they are shot at from the woods. To Ingrid's shock, Jack reveals he has a gun and uses it to take out the attacker with one precise shot. As the body falls in front of them, Jack starts to search it and orders Ingrid to go back to the house and call the police. However, as soon as Ingrid turns around, Jack kills her, knowing his cover has been blown. He then takes out the other assassin who was waiting in a nearby car. With his identity now compromised, Jack makes a hasty exit from the country and heads to Rome, Italy, where he meets with his handler Pavel. He explains the situation, insisting that Ingrid was not involved, but Pavel remains skeptical and reminds Jack that he shouldn't make friends in this line of work. Pavel promises to take care of those who found Jack, but in the meantime, Jack cannot stay in a major city and is sent to the small town of Castelvecchio. In search of a new adventure, Jack set out for Castelvecchio. However, upon arrival, he found the town to be uninspiring and quickly turned his car around. Discarding the phone provided by Pavel, he decided to head to Castel del Monte, a bustling town that promised more excitement. Under the alias of Edward, Jack rented a humble apartment and began to settle into his new surroundings. He adopted a daily routine of exercise, frequenting the local cafe, and exploring the natural beauty of the area with his camera, pretending to be a photographer. Despite the peacefulness of his new life, Jack remained vigilant, using binoculars to keep an eye out for any potential danger that may follow him. The constant state of alertness made him easily startled by the sound of his neighbor's scooter, which reminded him of gunfire. One morning, as he struggled with a vending machine, Jack was approached by Father Benedetto, who offered to help. The two struck up a conversation, and Benedetto invited Jack to share a glass of wine at his home. Jack attempted to decline, but the priest reminded him that he sees everything. After the encounter, Jack goes to a payphone and called Pavel. The man was angry with Jack for ditching the cell phone, but still offered him a job that would involve creating a custom fit for a fellow assassin, meaning Jack would not have to kill anyone. Jack promised to consider the offer. As the evening approached, Jack made his way to meet with Benedetto for a drink. To his surprise, Benedetto questioned why Jack, as a photographer of Italy, wasn't taking the time to learn about the country's rich history. He posited that it was likely due to Jack's American upbringing, where he may believe he can simply live in the present, detached from the past. Later on, Jack hit the road and headed towards Sulmona. Once there, he engaged in some shopping and kept a watchful eye on Mathilda from a distance. When she took a seat at a cafe, Jack strategically positioned himself at the table next to hers, and when she dropped her newspaper, he quickly picked it up as a subtle indication that he was the gunsmith she was searching for. Mathilda provided Jack with all of the necessary information for her weapon and he accepted the job. He also noted that a man was watching them, but Mathilda insisted that she was working alone. Later, Jack returned home and notices he spotted the same man in town. As night fell, Jack found himself struggling to sleep and constantly on edge, always ready to grab his gun at the slightest noise. A few days passed, and Jack made a trip to the post office to retrieve a highly important package. Inside were the components he needed to begin work on the weapon. The initial stages of assembly went smoothly, but he realized he would need some additional materials to construct a silencer. As the night progressed, he decided to pay a visit to a body house where he met Clara, a call girl who would change his world forever. In a separate encounter, Jack assists Benedetto when his car broke down in the middle of the road. Father Benedetto extends an invitation to Jack for dinner at his home, where Jack gets to hear the priest's anecdotes about his relationship with the townspeople. One person in particular, Fabio the local mechanic, seems to be causing the priest concern as he fears Fabio may be involved in some illicit activities. As they sit and chat, Jack ponders whether Benedetto ever harbored any other aspirations beyond being a priest. In turn, Benedetto jokingly wonders if Jack has ever considered a career change, pointing out that despite claiming to be inept with machines, Jack was able to fix his car with ease. He also notes that Jack seems to have more financial means than a typical journalist, but Jack chooses to brush off the comment. The following day, Jack deliberately breaks down his car and takes it to Fabio's garage for repairs. At first, Fabio is hesitant to help a stranger but changes his mind when Jack mentions his connection to Benedetto. Jack mentions that he has a hobby of working on cars and asks Fabio if he could obtain some parts to fix a broken drive shaft, to which Fabio obliges and offers the parts for free. As Jack looks for the necessary components to build a silencer, he stumbles upon a photograph that is identical to the one Benedetto had in his possession. On his way home, Jack spots Clara going to church and can't resist sharing a flirtatious glance. Back at his apartment, Jack immediately resumes work on the weapon, completing the silencer by nightfall. The following day, he takes the rifle to the woods for testing and is pleased to find that it works perfectly. Later, Jack heads to a brothel, but upon discovering that Clara is not working, he decides to depart instead of selecting a different companion. As the night falls, Jack finds himself at a cafe and observes the same man still keeping an eye on him. The server brings Jack an envelope left for him, and inside he finds a newspaper clipping discussing the bodies he left behind in Sweden. Upon returning to his apartment, he chooses a different route as a precaution and keeps his gun close by as he retires for the night. Later, Jack travels to the train station to pick up Mathilda, who is wearing a disguise to conceal her identity from curious onlookers. He then drives her to a secluded location in the forest near a river, which he is confident only he knows of. Despite this, Mathilda still wishes to walk around and ensure there are no footprints or tire tracks before they begin their work. Afterward, Jack lays out a picnic blanket as a cover in case the authorities investigate the area and shows Mathilda the rifle he has constructed. Mathilda assembles it with ease and places an order for special rounds made with mercury. She brings her target to test the rifle, which she does with ease. Then, she asks Jack to shoot at the flowers next to her from a fair distance. Jack is surprised that she trusts him enough not to harm her and shoots the flowers without causing her to flinch, impressing Mathilda with the silencer he made as she couldn't tell where the bullet came from. As the sun begins to rise, Mathilda and Jack finish their work on the rifle and bullet modifications. Mathilda requests some final tweaks and arranges for delivery by the 1st of next month, paying the first half of the money. They dispose of the bullet cases by throwing them in the nearby river, and Jack pours some chilled wine on the grass as a cover. A butterfly flutters by and lands on Mathilda's arm, prompting Jack to share some interesting facts about the species. Mathilda playfully dubs Jack Mr. Butterfly and inquires if he's ever brought a woman to this spot before, to which he denies. Later in the day, Jack makes a stop at a local body house to spend some time with Clara, who also calls him Mr. Butterfly due to his tattoo. Clara senses that something is on Jack's mind, but he assures her that she doesn't have to perform for him as she does for other clients. He tips her generously before returning to work on the rifle and bullets infused with mercury. In the following days, Jack takes breaks from his work to relax at a local cafe. One afternoon, he runs into Clara, who is on her way to the movies. They exchange small talk and Clara mentions that she's free on Wednesday, to which Jack suggests they meet at their usual spot. Clara tries to prod him into revealing the location, but he hesitates to mention the body house in front of her girlfriend. Realizing this, Clara invites him to meet her at a restaurant instead. As the ladies bid their farewells, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he perused the newspaper. The article about call girls being killed left him worried and on edge. Later that evening, as he made his way home, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. Sure enough, as he turned a corner, he saw the same man who had been watching him for days now following him closely. Jack quickly darted into an alleyway and removed his shoes, waiting for the man to pass by before stealthily following him with his gun drawn. His intention was clear, he wanted to take this man's life. However, his plans were abruptly interrupted by the arrival of his neighbor on a scooter. The assassin immediately reacted by shooting the driver and making a run for it in his car. With no other options, Jack took the keys from the body and used the scooter to give chase. The pursuit led them through the streets of the city, with Jack desperately trying to take the assassin down but failing to hit his mark. As they reached the outskirts of town, Jack finally managed to hit a tire and cause the car to crash. Approaching the vehicle, Jack took the assassin out with his bare hands and took possession of his gun. In the aftermath of the altercation, Jack called Pavel and informed him that the Swedes had found him once again. Pavel, however, instructed him to stay put and finish the job. Jack wants to know how he's been found and Pavel just responds Jack is losing his edge. That night, Jack has trouble sleeping because the guilt of killing Ingrid keeps haunting his dreams. In the morning, Jack meets with Benedetto and strikes up a conversation about all men being sinners, prompting Benedetto to explain those who seek peace are much sinning in history, and that Jack has done lots of sinning. Benedetto had heard about the death that happened nearby last night and wonders if Jack needs confession, but Jack turns him down and taunts him back by saying he can tell Fabio is Benedetto's secret son. Benedetto admits the mistake but goes on to claim that unlike Jack, at least he had someone in his life. That evening, Jack had a dinner date with Clara at a local restaurant. He was struck by her poise and confidence as she handled a rude waiter who attempted to take their order from Jack instead of her. And when a flower vendor approached their table, Jack couldn't resist buying her one. Clara protested at first, saying that the vendor assumed they were a couple, but Jack's gesture made her feel hopeful. She could also sense that he had a secret, but when he denied being married, she was content. After dinner, they returned to Clara's apartment and spent the night together. The next morning, while Clara was in the shower, Jack couldn't help but snoop around and found a gun in her purse. This discovery made him suspicious. Later that day, Jack completed his job and purchased a suitcase and office supplies to conceal the rifle properly. With his task completed, he began to keep a close eye on Clara, following her around to see if she was a spy. Although he saw her with some men, he couldn't tell if they were clients or criminals. The following day, Jack contacted Pavel and requested 2 more days before making the drop. Pavel granted his request, and in the afternoon, Jack took Clara on a picnic to a secret spot in the forest. As soon as Clara laid eyes on the river, she stripped down and dove in for a swim, but Jack abstained. Clara also discovers bullet casings in the water. Jack explained them to hunters and tossed them back in. As Jack and Clara continued to enjoy their picnic in the forest, Clara reached into her purse, causing Jack to tense and grab his gun defensively. But it turned out that she was simply grabbing sunscreen, and Jack's reaction prompted an argument between them. Clara explained that she carried a gun to protect herself due to a killer targeting call girls, and Jack reluctantly accepted her explanation. Clara then asked Jack to accompany her to the town procession the next day, wondering if they could start dating. Jack quickly shut down the idea, explaining that he couldn't stay forever. Clara responded by kissing him and pleading with him to stay. Jack couldn't stop thinking about Clara's request as he made his way home, and ultimately decided to call Pavel to inform him that he would be leaving after completing the delivery. Pavel seemed to accept this without a fuss, but after hanging up, he immediately contacted Mathilda with a special request. The following day, Jack met with Mathilda at a cafe by the road, where she was wearing yet another disguise. As Jack handed over the mercury bullets in a special can, Mathilda also grabbed the suitcase while excusing herself to use the restroom. Inside, she prepared an extra gun she had brought with her. Jack began to grow anxious as Mathilda took longer than expected, and the other clients left. With the gun ready in his pocket, Jack decided to wait outside, just in case. Eventually, Mathilda emerged and handed him the rest of the money. As Jack and Mathilda parted ways, it appeared as though she had more to say, but at that moment, a bus full of children arrived, and Mathilda quickly made her exit before they could be noticed. Jack drove back to the town, while Mathilda followed him, talking on the phone with Pavel, who wanted her to kill Jack as soon as possible. Back in town, the streets were crowded with the procession, making it easy for Mathilda to sneak inside a house, kill the owners, and find a spot on their roof to keep an eye on Jack, while Pavel also arrived in the area. When Jack meets Clara, he asked her to run away with him, and she wholeheartedly accepted. As they professed their love for each other, Mathilda prepared to take her shot, but her weapon backfired and killed her, as Jack had rigged it in advance. Jack saw this and realized that they were after him, so he handed Clara the money and told her to wait for him at the secret spot in the forest. He then went to check on Mathilda and ask her who had sent her. Mathilda confessed that it was Pavel before she died. Suddenly, Benedetto arrived to see what was happening, and Jack pointed his gun at him, but he had learned his lesson with Ingrid and didn't shoot. After apologizing to the priest, Jack set out to find Pavel, entering an empty alley on purpose so that he would be followed. Pavel fell for the trap and came closer, but when he raised his gun, Jack turned around and shot him dead. Afterward, Jack took Pavel's car to go to the forest, but he started feeling unwell as he realized that Pavel had hit him and he was slowly bleeding to death. Jack somehow manages to reach the forest and sees Mathilda waiting for him. He reaches out for her, but before he can utter a farewell, he succumbs to his fate and passes away. That is it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing.